It's a beautiful evening. Welcome to the Monday edition of Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network. My name is Ekpo Temple, and on today's edition of the show, we'll take a look at all the happenings in the world of sports. Big stories from Formula One, the emergence of Lando Norris, 11th British driver to have won the Drivers' Championship in the FIA history. We also talk about the Nigeria Premier Football League, where Rivers United are just 1 point close to the top of the log, as well as the pitfalls from some of the big names and the thrashing of Bayelsa United at the Cathedral in Enugu. And then away from that, we'll talk about the African Cup of Nations. We're counting down to the 35th edition of the African Cup of Nations, the showdown from the 21st of this month, and a lot of reaction coming out from the Super Eagles of Nigeria to the Cameroonian Football Federation. All of this will form the bulk of our conversation. And then lastly, we'll talk the 5 big leagues in Europe, where Arsenal are just 2 points clear now, the top of the standing after they fought against Aston Villa at Villa Park. All of this will take your fancy if you stay tuned to our conversation here on Atlantic Television Network. That break, if you're just joining us, is T Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network with Ekpo Temple. I'm not going to do this alone this evening because I have Emmanuel Michael, the Mike Man, as I call him, and he joins me on the show today to look at some of the trending stories popping out from the ever busy and exciting world of sports. Mike, it's a beautiful Monday evening here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on this side of the divide. Glad to be here on a very lovely evening. And the Yuletide period is here. And we're actually enjoying the weather because it is actually that time of the day where a lot of celebration comes up. And of course, we are here talking sport, in this Yuletide period.
And we'll start with Formula One. The lightning at Yas Marina and all that played out over the weekend. We saw how it all transpired, and the permutations were high. It could have gone to the guy from Netherlands. It could have gone to the guy from Austria. Maybe the Australian guy is a little bit far from the radar, but the British Lando Norris was one man who everything was, all around him, and he certainly didn't fail. Get a podium finish and end the talk of 2025 season, which he finally did. Let's take us through, the happenings from, the first, event, the race, the practice session, and all that. It was very clear that Max Verstappen would not fail to win this particular one. So what he needed to was to win and then wait for the unexpected to happen, which he did. And unfortunately for him, we saw the glorious moment and the ride and the drive of that man, Lando Norris, who, against all odds, was able to pick a podium finish, and that ends all the fight for the 2025 season.
Yeah, first off, I must say that it was a season full of a lot of pressure from the McLaren side after starting the season very strong, and especially for London Norris, he did not even start the season very well, but then at the second half of the season, he was able to pick up, dethroning his old teammate that was actually leading at that point, talking about Oscar Piastri, and of course, since then, he was, just blazing on, and even his own teammate could not even catch him any longer. He took the exceptional driving skills of Max Verstappen, to bounce back into the title contention. Taking a look at how the season panned out, some thought maybe Max Verstappen, his form for this season is not that good. But then we saw him putting up an impressive fight, especially at the mid-end of the Formula One season, where he began to, of course, pick up his mojo, and especially with the last 10 races, we began to see Max Verstappen, doing what he knows how to do best. And finally went to the Abu Dhabi, where it was more like three drivers going out for each other's neck, especially at the last race. And the last time we saw this kind of a scenario play out, where we had about three potential drivers going all out for the championship, was in 2015. And so for me, I think it was an exceptional Formula One season, where we saw a new winner emerge, and of course the first time McLaren driver in the person of London Norris will be winning his first championship. And then the first time after a very long while, 2008, where McLaren will win the Constructors Championship and of course the Drivers Championship. But talking about the race proper, I think London Norris had all advantage heading into that race, because he had about 12 points lead over Max Verstappen before the last Abu Dhabi final showed, and then 16 points ahead of his teammate in the person of Oscar Piastri, with just 25 points to fight for. So all three drivers were potential winners, even before that final. So that caused a whole lot of palpable tension among the McLaren drivers. I wouldn't say there was a tension on the side of Max Verstappen, because he's one man that thrive under pressure. So yes, there's nothing like pressure. Even considering what happened last season, at the end of last season, where his father was in loggerhead with the constructor, talking about the Red Bull, the authority, and at some points, yes, at some points, even the father made it very clear that if things does not go down well, he might even force his son to switch, to other constructors. But despite all of those distractions, he was even still, competing at the highest level. So it's just that the second driver to Red Bull, to this Max Verstappen, the second driver of Red Bull, was it Lawson? I think he has not been very, very impressive at all. If he has been very impressive, maybe at least finishing within the podium 1 or 2 times or 4 times, maybe Red Bull would have been able to make this one on the board. But then it was just like a solo. He was just riding solo for the Red Bull side, but then he was not deterred. He fought with the last breath he had out there, just that he wasn't what he planned. He was hoping that maybe there was going to be some form of a mistake from the McLaren drivers. It's either from their house putting a phone call to allow one of the drivers to allow the next person to overtake, which is what we saw some time ago that caused them heavily in this particular race, which led them to drop points severely. And that is why Max Verstappen came back to haunt them, was getting close to catching up with them. So I think Max Verstappen, being the sole driver as it is, not just a sole driver, but then the only man that is making, big headway couldn't, do it this time around. And you have two good drivers in London Norris and of course Oscar Piastri, sharing the points within them. That helped the McLaren team a whole lot this season. If it were to be only Oscar Piastri or London Norris, if these two drivers were driving for different teams, I can tell you that Max Verstappen would have still, certainly win this year's edition. But then the combination of the two forces actually, was what actually gave them the edge. And come to think of it, London Norris just needed to finish within the podium. All right. So just imagine.
Because there was 12 points. He was stopping with 12 points.
Yeah.
After the penultimate game in Qatar. So I'll get the podium finish. Doesn't matter whether Max Verstappen wins it. If he wins, about I think it's about 21 points thereabout. So he needs just to get the podium finish, and no matter what happened, he will still top with just 2 points. So I guess that he knew those mathematics was very clear, and he didn't fail at all.
For the fact that he couldn't finish within second, that is to tell you how the keenly contested the race is. Because if he were to be all out, I think he should have finished second to tell the world I'm not just going for the less to wait for. At
the point, Oscar Piastri was even willing to help.
Exactly. So
if it was about second place that will enable him to win, Oscar Piastri was willing to help. And how do you do that? That's where you see team just to give him more way to get in, and then he will block other drivers. It's very dicey, but since he knew that all he needed was a third place finish, I guess that they just went on. But come to think of it, Oscar Piastri, the man who started very brilliantly and all of a sudden sublimed, what transpired? How come he is not even in the title race after the penultimate game?
You see, sometimes the constructors have a way of trying to project, one driver whenever they are in a very dicey situation. I think the earlier mistake might have taught them a serious lesson, and that is why they did not leave anything to chances. All right, knowing quite well that Max Verstappen is a very slicky driver, and that is why they had to focus their energy on London Norris to ensure that he goes home this very one. So I think the picture was let London Norris be the poster man at this point, because earlier in the season, you could recall that this McLaren team was almost projecting, Oscar Piastri as their #1 driver.
That's true.
Which at some point didn't go down well with London Norris, but he was very professional. He never complained. He just allowed everything to die down. But when they saw that costly mistake in one of the races almost nearly cost them, and that is when they began to think twice to say, okay, if London Norris is the man that is pulling the string at this point in time, let us also, join our force, to support him. And I think that is what actually made it, very easy and paid the way for London Norris. But not taking anything away from him, though, because he did extremely well throughout the course of the season. After that poor start to the season, he was able to pick up at some point in the season, and he was able to finish very strong. So a very big congratulations to McLaren team, and of course London Norris becoming the 11th British driver to win the championship. I think it's a great one. He must be celebrating right now, and I must say congratulations once more to London Norris.
Congratulations to London Norris, and wish that he's not the 11th driver to have won this particular one. And I'm just also thinking what becomes of Lewis Hamilton now that because the last driver to have won any of these is Lewis Hamilton, and he's nowhere they're calling at all. What do you think would lie for Lewis Hamilton come next season?
I think nothing. Maybe you should just be thinking of retiring, because at this point it is no longer the Lewis Hamilton. He left his former side hoping that he left Mercedes hoping that going to Ferrari would be a soft landing for him, but then he continued to churn out poor results. I think he spoke at some point about himself, saying that he teased one of the worst seasons in his career, which he never even want to remember again. That is to tell you how devastated and how heartbroken that he is so far. So you cannot achieve so much
Congratulations to Lando Norris. The McLaren guys are now back-to-back. Constructor champions, and of course, they've won the doubles for the first time since 1999. It tells you how great a team like this can be. All right, we'll move away from that, and then we'll go on a short break. When we come back, we'll talk football matters, starting with the Nigeria Premier Football League. All right, welcome back from that break. If you're just joining us, it's still Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network, and I'm still here with Emmanuel Michael. It's time now to talk football matters. Yes, we talked about London Norris and his feat as they just concluded the Formula One, 2025 season, and it's time to talk the Nigeria Premier Football League, where we saw some brilliant action on March the 16th across various centers. There in the game between Economy Warriors and Barua FC, it ended goalless in that one. Economy Warriors, Michael, playing out goalless against Barua. This is a little bit surprising, but when you know that it's a Northern Derby, you just place your mind that, of course, it can just happen. But Economy Warriors themselves are not shining that we should be. Usually, Madiguri used to be, the slaughter of dogs. But right now, they've not shown that strength come this season. Maybe because of the punishment meted on them too, or the way the league has taken the issue of officiating is so strong. So anything can go anywhere and pick maximum point.
Just what the league is coming up with, I think there's been a stringent measure adopted to ensure a fair officiating, because sometimes referees could go a whole long way to determine the outcome of a match. If you have a very bad ref officiating poorly in a match, it goes a whole long way to affect the level of the game. But then, since NPFL board has continued to hammer and warn referees to stand tall in terms of their officiating, warning that any referee that does not live up to the standard will face a severe punishment. I think some of the referees that we need to live up, we need to see fair officiating somehow, and that is why teams can go away from home and get a positive result. You can go away from home now, pick up 3 points, go away from home and get a valuable point, and nothing happens. You come home peacefully, which is what football is all about, because football, there are 3 results that you get. It's either you win, you lose, or you draw. Yeah. And the spirit of sportsmanship demands that whichever result that comes your way, you must be able to show that spirit of sportsmanship by congratulating your opponent, and then work hard in your next game to see if you can be able to, of course, football league for some years right now, and they couldn't get all 3 points at home. This to tell you how gradually the league is gradually improving. It might not be there yet, all right, but then there is a slight difference from what we used to see in the past.
Kind of pillars, so we're 2-1 better than one of the newcomers, saying Kun Khalifa FC.
A good one for them, but despite the result, they still remain rooted at the bottom of the league table, just 12 points after 16 games. That is how dismal and abysmal that this Canopilla side has been so far this season.
For Rivers United, it looks like this season might just be their own for the taking, because they have a way of going away from home and trying to drag points against Abia Warriors, one of the contending teams for the title. They've also shown strength, getting a 1-1 apiece and sharing the spoil there.
Good one for Rivers United. I mean, they have no other option as it stands this season. After the embarrassing outing in the continent, though they are not yet knocked out yet, they still have about 4 games to play. But going by the result of the 2 games they've played so far in the group stage, losing all 2 games, all right, I don't really see them progressing further in the CAF Champions League unless they need the hand of God and special miracle for them to turn things around for good. But you take a look at the way they struggle to score goals. It is not far from saying that Rivers United might not possibly move to the next round of the CAF Champions League. So the onus lies on them right now to focus all their energy. I mean, invest all your efforts in the league. Last time you came second, against the eventual winner, talking about Remo Stars. This time around, I think the target should be for you to win the league, because it's been a while that Rivers United won the Nigerian Premier Football League. So I think all hands must be on deck at this point. Rivers United under Finitijo, they must try everything humanly possible to ensure that they leave the league. And of course, they are just third on the log right now with 27 points. Then they still have 2 games in hand, though a game at hand doesn't mean a point in the bag, but then there is this glimpse of hope that if they can continue to at least find a way to get positive results like this. At least if you go away from home, you can't win all 3 points. Take 1 point, then come back home to finish the job. I think this might just be the season for Rivers United.
Season for Rivers United, and that also reminds me of Enugu Rangers, who are also, climbing gradually. They are now seated fourth. That means that with the bashing of Bayelsa United 4 at home, it raised a lot of doors. They've not been performing very consistently as we know them, and a lot of rumors have also been speculated that they might relieve that man Ilechukwu, who have come out to debunk that. But good result for them on the day, and that also shows that, come on, they are not out of the title race yet.
Definitely, one of the oldest side that know how to play the English, rather the Nigerian Premier Football League. Despite a poor start to the season, I still think that they are still within reach of the title chase this time around with Fidelity Ilechukwu. The national team duty has somehow distracted him a bit. Sometimes he's away for national duty, then he's second Kennedy Ilechukwu will be on the dugout, but then it looks as though they are gradually crawling back into the title race. Maybe a team that gets to win the title doesn't really necessarily get to make noise. They are just gradually and patiently moving. So if they can continue with this fine result by scoring goals as much as 3-4 goals, I can assure you that Enugu Rangers are one of the title contenders this season.
Title contenders, I'll get to see if Kwara United can also be a title contender with a 2-0 win against Niger Tornadoes. And then Plateau United got a 1-0 win against Warriors at the New Jos Stadium. Remo Stars came back to win that game against Yimba 2-1, and they continue to show their brilliance, when it comes to seeing how far they can get themselves back, on a good side. They've been struggling so hard, but then we see how far. 2 games are on currently as we speak right now. Katsina United taking on Bender Insurance, and Nassau United versus Shooting Stars. Mike, have you heard any result of from those quarters?
No result yet. I think we just do well to keep track with that particular result. As the game currently on the network, not really good to see. We can be able to dig into the results.
And of course, we'll get to bring you that particular one. One thing very striking is that a lot is happening. Nigeria preparing for the Africa Cup of Nations, and one thing also is that the team have said, come on, with the game between Nigeria and Egypt. A lot of adverse effects. We talked about it last week, and I can see that it's already telling. Because of time, this is going to affect a lot of team players, except for those whose nations, players are all from the lower, from their national team.
Yeah, I think the shifting of dates, for players, for clubs rather, to release players, has caused this particular one in the shifting of date for the friendly games. Because if the friendly games is taking place on 14th or 16th, whereas the date for players, for clubs rather, to release their players is 15th. So it becomes extremely impossible for we to have our first team players, or the Egyptian having their first team players to be part of that friendly. So I think it is the best thing for them to shift it, allow players to come to camp, then you get to file out a first 11 that are starters, so that you can use it as a preparatory ground ahead of the African Cup of Nations Cup that kicks.
Name their players, and Coach Put is very willing to really get something from the group of Nigeria, but I'm just wondering how far the Cranes can go with them having some Nigerian players. One Nigerian player, Ikpazo, who is of Nigerian descent and Ugandan mother. This this fiesta promises to be a mind-blowing one. I'm just wondering how far they can go.
We'll just wait and see. Time will tell how far they can go.
And then also, I'll take a look from that now. Let's talk about the games in European scene where we saw top clash in the English Premier League and across other leagues. I will start with this particular one that concerns Brighton and Hove Albion yesterday. Played a 1-0 draw with West Ham United. Fulham also tried their game. Played to play their best at home at Craven Cottage, but they lost to Crystal Palace. Oliver Glasner, the manager of the side, truly doing so well for the side. The man has really changed the narrative of the side, pushing the team, getting results as when due. I thought it was a fluke when they won against Manchester City in the FA Cup, but it's beyond that now.
Yeah, you know, football is very dynamic and unpredictable. You just get to know that there are some managers that are just quite good when they are in mid-table clubs. They just know how to churn out positive results. But then give them a bigger team, you know, they begin to struggle. So I think for Brighton, a good one for them. Brighton, they've been a very good team, especially how they manage their players. They are not this type that really spend big on established players. But then you see them, you know, churning out positive results. You know, they never struggle for the relegation. You always see them within a top 7, 8, 10, or 11. So I think we'll just see. But then I think the manager must take kudos as well for what he's doing so far this season. And
of course, we saw what transpired in the early hours of Saturday when Aston Villa hosted Arsenal at the Villa Park. It was a very drama-filled encounter. 2-1 it ended, and I mean the second goal came at the nick of time, 90 plus 5 minutes. We saw the drama that played out. Do you think Arsenal should have done more to have at least gotten a point in that game, or you just think that gradually something is lacking in that area now, or in that side?
Arsenal, I think the league is for them to win and lose as may stand for this season, because throughout this season, I think there have been a lot of praises and encomium showered on this Arsenal team because of how fluid they play and how good the squad is. Then you talk about the squad depth which they have. You know, they have been the major talking point on when you talk about the favourites in terms of who get to win the English Premier League. But then this Aston Villa side just seems to have their antidotes. They know how to neutralize Arsenal. If you can cast your back
2 seasons ago,
you know how this same Aston Villa rather dented the title hope aspiration of Arsenal out there in their own backyard at the Emirates Stadium. About 3 games to go before the season, and this is a title for them to win or lose. And you have a game at home against team like Aston Villa, where so many were, you know, tipping Arsenal win that game. Some had already counted a 3-point for Arsenal.
But you can also take away the fact that Aston Villa have also been in a very good run of others in recent time, even if they too have had some inconsistencies challenge.
Definitely, and that is why I say that Aston Villa has the antidote to neutralize, and they just know how to do it, whether they are informed or not informed. Whenever they come up against Arsenal, it is always a difficult game for Arsenal. Don't also forget that they, you know, have their coach in the person of Unai Emery, who was a former coach to Arsenal before the present coach came, talking about Mikel Arteta. He had coached us, so he understands how Arsenal plays. He knows the in and out of Arsenal, so therefore that is a little advantage. Then again, prior to the game against Arsenal, Aston Villa has won about 4 straight games heading into that encounters. That is to tell you that Aston Villa, they were not pushover, they were also in form as well, even before the game against Arsenal. And this culminated in them raising up the bar when it matters more. And then again, playing at home tough was yet another motivating factor, because playing at home is not necessarily mean that you must get all 3, but then the fans, especially the English fans,
they know how to intimidate Arsenal somehow.
So it is what happened, and I think at this point Arsenal need to be just very wary, because having Manchester City, closing you down with just 2 points separating. This is Manchester City that was about 8 or even 9 points adrift of Arsenal a few weeks ago. Here they are this time around, grounding out the result, getting close to Arsenal. Even this same Aston Villa, they are seated in third position with just 3 points separating Aston Villa and Arsenal. This to tell you that Arsenal, they have a very, very big thing to defend in their hand.
Now, initially, before now, Arsenal have a way of getting results, no matter how they grinded this result. But it looks as the guys are back now. Some of the guys are back, and that could it be because of the shaping of the team? Martin Odegaard, when he was not there, and some of the big names, they were grinding results, But now they are back now. It looks like the team is back again to its struggle of getting results to minor teams.
I think the challenge, in that last game, according to some persons, because of injury worry to their defensive framework, to their defense line, I beg your pardon, which for me, I do not want to really toe that line, because if you don't have Saliba, does it mean that you cannot win games? If you don't have Hincapi and some of the defenders that were out injured in that game, does it mean that Arsenal cannot win games? And that is why we praise them for their squad depth. So I really don't want to toe that line, but it's looking likely that the defensive crack within the Arsenal backline is really the major factor.
Bournemouth, yes, at the Vitality Stadium, I play at a goalless draw with Chelsea, and for Chelsea, these days it looks like you don't even know what to get from them somehow.
Chelsea, for me, they are consistently inconsistent. All right, they win today, win tomorrow. When the hope is very high that they are going to win the next game, you just see them fumbling. After that impressive display against Barca in the UEFA Champions League by winning 3-0 at home, they followed that up with 1-1 draw with Arsenal, even when they were 10-man down, playing for majority of the game. All right, that lifted the morals of Chelsea faithfuls across the globe. That if they can play this good against a team like Barca, then follow that up with a team like Arsenal. For majority of the time, they were playing 10 against 11. They still played better, had more shots on target than this good Arsenal side. So the hope was high. But boom, against Leeds United, when you think they are going to devour Leeds United, coming at the back heel of those fine display against Barca and Arsenal, they crumbled. All right, 3-1. Before you could say, Jack, that maybe it's just one of those things, they were headed to 0-0 draw. So these Chelsea side, they are consistently inconsistent, and that is why, for me, I don't think they are one of the title contender. Maybe if they finish within the Champions League spot, then a good one for them.
Good one for them, Everton. Demolished Nottingham Forest 3-0, and Manchester City had it all going for them against Sunderland 3-0. Newcastle United were 2-1 better off than Burnley, and Tottenham Hotspur at the Brentford there 2-0. Leeds United played a 3-0 draw with Liverpool. Come on, Mike, this was a truly entertaining and captivating fixture. Liverpool lost it at close to the blast of the whistle, and at 90 plus, it was all good for the guys from Elland Road, and you need to see the crowds cheering them.
I think Liverpool and their coach, they must be licking their wound right now, because you can't go 2 goals up, all right, against Leeds, like a team like Leeds United, and you cannot see up the game. A title, contender, supposedly a defending champion of the English Premier League. You took a 2-goal cushion against a team like Leeds United. You allowed them to draw level. You took the lead yet again. You could not hold on, and the game went into a 3-3 draw. That is to tell you that there is a questionable mark within this Liverpool team that the coach must, as a matter of urgency, try to sort out. So we saw the club board, though, backing the coach despite the poor form of the Liverpool side of late. But then I think the coach needs to, brace up, fix what seems to be the problem, because this is not the Liverpool of last season. Despite the fact that they spend huge, they spend more than any other club in the English Premier League. This is over £500 million, yet it looks as though they did not even, beef up the squad. So I think it is a worrying time for Ancelotti, and a big, problem in his hand that he needs to solve as quick as possible.
quick as possible. And a lot of people are thinking that even if you're losing, if you are benching Mo Salah and you're still losing, why continuously keep him bench when he can come in and still put the magic and trigger?
I think that is the coach decision, which I think that decision did not go down well with the team. It didn't even go down well with Mo Salah himself. But then beyond Mo Salah, it's about the team, because no one player is bigger than the team. You know, I think the decision not to introduce Salah, you know, at least 70 minutes in the clock and you are still struggling, 80 minutes, this is where you need to bring on your marksman and see if he can make the difference. All right, but he kept him throughout the bench, and I mean, throughout the course of the game on the bench, Mo Salah, you know, he did not bring him on. Who knows, if it had come on in the 80 minutes, maybe he would have done the magic. And of course, we know that some of these big name players, sometimes when you keep them on the bench, when they come up in the second half, they tend to be angry, you know, to display, to show what they are made up of, so that next game the coach will want to start him. But then he paid deaf ear to that, and it cost him so much that you know, they dropped 2 points, which for me I think is not a good one for Liverpool.
Not a good one for Liverpool. And today we're going to see Wolves versus Manchester United, and that game promises to be a lovely one. Wolves are seated at the bottom of the table, and I'm just thinking how they're going to go about this particular one. They might break the record of Derby County in 2017 when they won just 11 games. You know, so I'm wondering how far they can go. I'm not sure that the record is before them. They have to do everything possible to get a win. They've sacked few of the managers before, and the last time they did so was during the era of Nuno Espirito Santo. Some of the players who played then have all been sold out, and the Wolves that we know isn't the same Wolves, you know, today. But somehow, against a Manchester United who also lack some rhythm when it matters, Melinos, can they be rejuvenated to play?
I think Manchester United should compound the woes of Wolves this night. It's just that Manchester United sometimes they blow hot and cold as well. The relegation battling in Wolverhampton Wanderers, you expect Manchester United, going by the pedigree and the quality of players that they have, to, you know, outclass Wolves with ease. But football is not played on paper, all right? So they need to show working on the pitch. But then all odds is favoring Manchester United to take all 3 points. But who knows? They might just get the shock of their life. Wolves as well, they won't want to go to relegation, so they will be struggling, battling to see if they can be able to at least get all 3 points. So I think it's going to be a very tricky game. But at the end of it all, I see Manchester United taking home all 3 points. All
right, let's move away from the English Premier League now. Let's wrap up conversation with the La Liga Santander. Also other leagues like Bundesliga actions, Paris Saint-Germain doing so in the Ligue 1. You know, we saw Napoli also are not lowering their guard in the Serie A, but we're just closing with the La Liga Santander, where Elche defeated Girona yesterday 3-0, and then the Valencia played a 1-0 draw with Sevilla. Espanyol were 1-0 better than Real Vallecano, and then Madrid fought against Celta Vigo, and that's a talking point, you know, the match that has elicited some reactions. What is wrong with the Madrid or the Madridista?
Madrid has been more like a one-man team. Whenever Kylian Mbappe failed to, you know, shine, it looks as though Madrid are helpless. And for Xabi Alonso, there are still some question marks about his style of play, as he has not been able to, you know, easily convince the board and the Madridistas about his philosophy. This has been the issue. You don't build a team around just one man alone. When the man is not in the game, it looks as though you are vulnerable. You can't be playing at the Bernabeu and you are losing to a team like Celta Vigo 2-0 with 2 red cards. You know, I think for me, it was such a disappointing, you know, display from Real Madrid, considering the fact that Barca had won their game 5-3. But of course, this should have been more like a must-win game for Real Madrid to closing the gap of Barca, because whenever the Catalan-based club goes ahead of Madrid, it is always a very difficult one for Madrid to start chasing behind. But then it is always easier for Barca to catch up with Madrid whenever Madrid is sitting at top of the league. So I think big question mark for Xavi alone. So we hear that the board, is also cooking up something. Maybe if he get to lose this midweek UEFA Champions League clash against Manchester City at the Santiago Bernabeu, maybe, just maybe we'll see the real side of the board, whether they are coming to make a very big statement.
Many thanks, Micah, for giving us all the reactions and, of course, more analytical point of view to some of the issues popping out from the beautiful world of sports this evening. It's been a wonderful time here, but this is why we call it a wrap on today's edition of the show. Ekpo Temple is my name. Let's do this again tomorrow, same time on Atlantic Television Network. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.